I am Damonous. Jesus is my king. You are my family. Hello, I am Damonous. Thanks for joining. I think we've seen in the last couple of years how the mainstream media follows its own path in terms of coloring what the stories are with their own beliefs, with their own political agendas. So you have to ask yourself the question, if all you watch is the mainstream media, are you getting the entire story? And why is it when people bring up questions about a certain event, like the recent Parkland shooting on February 14th, if people bring up questions about that, why are they so quick in the mainstream media to bring out the conspiracy theory and then lump it in with everything else, right? Parkland, Las Vegas, Sandy Hook, Columbine, and really try really paint the picture of guilt by association right off the top as soon as possible. What happened with this is one of the survivors, David Hogg, a young kid who was one of the survivors at Parkland, Florida shooting. He's become a very outspoken critic of gun rights and just has had his face out there a lot. Some people actually found a correlation that his father is a former FBI agent, and then there's been some internet theories that he's a crisis actor. Now, if you've never heard that word before, or that term before, crisis actor basically is based on a theory that there is some conspiracy going on there. There is something that we're not being told, and there might be other shooters. There might be, it might be that the shooter that we're being told is the shooter, like is in this case Nicholas Cruz, didn't actually even do the shooting. He's just a patsy. And some of the internet theories go into saying, oh, well, maybe people weren't even killed. And if you're going to have an open mind, it's interesting to review some of those theories sometimes. But I'm not here to say that David Hogg is a crisis actor. But I am here to show you a few things that you might not have seen because the mainstream media doesn't bring it out to the forefront. Now, this has been catching a lot of news, this part. Breaking CNN reports 4 Broward County deputies waited outside school as children were massacred. Now, it was known for some time that Broward County Sheriff's Deputy, Scott Pearson, was on site, and he didn't do anything. He basically called for backup, but he didn't go in to help, even though he was armed, which actually kind of shoots down this whole theory that, oh, we're going to benefit a lot if we have armed guards in the schools. I think it's actually a good idea. I don't think we should ever stop teachers from concealed carry if they know how to use it and such, and to be that type of extra protection for these children who are defenseless. But in this case, it seems like there was someone on site with a weapon, and he cowered outside. But more than that, there's the issues with the deputies, and should they have gone in and instead of waiting outside, and what were they waiting for if they have guns, and they heard shots, and why were they sitting out there? And if any one of them had gone in, could they have saved 2 people, 3 people, 4? But let's look at the timeline. This is the official timeline. Uber, Rampage, then McDonald's. Timeline in the Florida school shooting. This is the Associated Press timeline. Nicholas Cruz jumped out of an Uber car and walked towards Building 12 of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, carrying a black duffel bag and a black backpack. A man inside the school spotted Cruz and knew that he was a former student, a troubled kid. He radioed a coworker and within a minute heard gunshots. So that's the official story, and it actually says here, Cruz slipped into the building, entered a stairwell, and pulled a rifle from his bag, authorities said. He shot into 4 rooms on the first floor, going back to spray room bullets into 2 of the rooms on the second time. then went upstairs and shot a single victim on the second floor. He ran to the third floor, where, according to a timeline released by the Broward County Sheriff's Office, 3 minutes passed before he dropped the rifle and backpack, ran back down the stairs, and quickly blended in with panicked, fleeing students. That's all well and good, but how does this reconcile with the story told by this heroic school teacher who was in the midst of the violence?
Creative writing teacher Stacy Lapel's class was playing music, writing love letters when the fire alarm went off. As students filed into the hallway, she heard gunfire. The killing had begun.
I was about 2 feet away from my door. All of a sudden I heard gunshots in the stairwell, which is about 20 feet away from my room. And then kids were screaming and then running back towards me and towards the end of the hallway. So I just went in this very strange autopilot mode where I pivoted on my feet. I unlocked my door, and the kids just started pouring in my room. I don't know how many kids were in there, but I was pulling them and getting them in and shouting at them to get in the room. And then I suddenly saw the shooter about 20 feet from me, standing at the end of the hallway, actively shooting down the hallway, just a barrage of bullets. And I'm staring at him thinking, why is the police here? This is strange, because he's in full metal garb, helmet, face mask, bulletproof armor, shooting this rifle that I'd never seen before. I don't know when I decided it was the right time to close the door. I grabbed the handle with both hands, and that's when I got nicked.
So, how do those stories reconcile? How did he get in 1 minute and put on all his body armor? And it's interesting what she says about a rifle she's never seen before. I don't know what to make of that. Maybe she hasn't seen weapons much at all in her life, but it lays some question around the official timeline, and that Nicholas Cruz jumped out of his car, jumped out of an Uber with his duffel bag, went into the school. 1 minute later, he managed to get all his body armor on, and then he started shooting people. But the real controversy is summarized very well on this site, although they pulled their information from another site. There's a lot to read here, but essentially what was happening was that in order to increase the success rate of the school districts, both in Miami-Dade and Broward counties, which are right next to each other, the school districts, the local police, and the local government conspired to actually reduce the violations that kids in these schools got, to lower charges instead of sending them to jail. So here's the detail. When the story all began about 60 years ago in Miami-Dade County, where the school district was struggling to succeed. All the data painted a picture of a failing school district. The district noticed large portions of their school populations were being arrested at a higher proportion than the rest of their community, and they realized that if they could cut down on the criminality of their students, they could quickly improve the data coming out of their schools. With this in mind, the district entered into a relationship with their local police force and concluded a deal that would ensure the police would stop arresting so many of their students. And indeed, here's a document from Miami-Dade where it actually illustrates this. So this is, again, this is February 15, 2012, and it says, has a distinction of decreasing school-related juvenile delinquency by an impressive 60% for the last 6 months of 2011, which is the largest decline in any school district in the state. The police force is being heralded for adopting effective alternatives to arrest, such as civil citations. It says, within a year or two, surrounding communities began to notice the change, and Broward County decided that it was time they entered into a similar deal with their local police force. The Broward County School Board and District Superintendent entered into a political agreement with Broward County law enforcement officials to stop arresting students for crimes. So, all this fury right now over gun control and the horrible deaths, 17 deaths in this school, really amounts to nothing at all to do with guns, but to do with officials, political officials, not doing their jobs, school officials not doing their jobs. police not doing their jobs. You want proof of that? This is recently from Naples Daily News, a timeline of Nicholas Cruz's activities leading to the mass shooting. Now, there's a lot in here from 2012 and so forth, but it shows that this kid was always a problem. Nicholas Cruz's adoptive mother reports the 14-year-old attacked her with a plastic vacuum cleaner hose. 2013, deputies respond to a call that Cruz threw his mother against the wall because she took away his video games. 2014, he was transferred to an alternative school for developmentally disabled and students with behavior problems. 2016, a neighbor called police after seeing an alarming Instagram post that suggested Cruz might plan to shoot up the school. 2016, in September, administrators suspend Cruz and refer him to social workers after getting into a fight following a breakup with his girlfriend. Also, later in September 2016, a student told Peterson that Peterson is the man who we just talked about, who did not go in. He had a gun, but he didn't go in and do anything during the shooting. A student told Peterson that Cruz, depressed and cutting himself, had ingested gasoline in an attempt to kill himself. September 2017, this is a year after the other one, a Mississippi bond bailsman told the FBI that a commoner identifying himself as Nicholas Cruz had left a message on his YouTube channel that read, "I'm going to be a professional school shooter." November 2017, Champs called police after a fight broke out between Cruz and her eldest son, Rock. As recent as January of this year, a woman close to Cruz's family alerts the FBI she is concerned about Cruz owning guns, posting on Instagram that he wanted to kill people, and he may go shoot up a school. So, why did all this happen? Why was all this excused? Well, I think these memos of agreement between the city and the police and the school to not incarcerate people who are troublesome, so that they could raise their stats and show that their school district is performing well and has behaved children. Maybe that's the problem. So my point in showing you all this today, people, is just to drive home the point that there's never a good time to give up your gun rights. As the Constitution of the United States says with the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Again, note that it's saying that the reason for the guns is it's necessary for the security of a free state. What we may be being shown by the mass media, by all the talking heads, might not be all the story. It doesn't really matter whether it really was a crazy in all these cases, whether it really was a lone gunman or not. It doesn't matter, because the reason for the gun rights is for the people, we the people, to enforce this contract with our government called the Constitution of the United States. Without the guns, we are merely talking air into the wind. We can have all the protests, we can have all the children line up and have news conferences and talk about how great this is or how we should do that and be very noble. But nobility without any method of enforcement is nothing, and leads to tyranny in every government the world has ever seen. So now is a good time as a country. We should probably pray for our country. We should pray that our leaders like Trump act on principles, that our leaders in the House and the Senate act on principles and not on political pressure. Not on political pressure from CEOs, from corporations, from crying eyes. We need statesmen in government, not politicians. That is the corruption of America. Thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Catch me on these alternate media sources.